A secret movement known as the #AltGov is openly rebelling against Trump and Musk from inside our federal agencies. Michael Snyder reports, we have a government that's literally fighting against itself. The federal workforce has always been more liberal than the population as a whole, but in recent years, things have gotten really bad. Prior to this year, Democrats had been in control of the White House for 12 of the past 16 years. Over time, leftists that were hired for key positions just kept hiring more leftists underneath them. In fact, it got to a point where DEI policies at various agencies essentially institutionalized a systematic hiring of leftists. By the end of the Biden administration, leftist domination of most of our federal agencies was virtually complete. But now we have a new administration that most of our leftist federal workers absolutely detest. Many of them have absolutely no intention of cooperating with the new administration, and some of them have started to openly rebel against it. A secretive movement known as #AltGov has become the epicenter of that rebellion. Those that are involved primarily communicate through anonymous social media accounts and an encrypted messaging app. Calling itself #AltGov, the network has developed a visible public-facing presence in recent weeks through Blue Sky accounts, most of which bear the names or initials of federal agencies, aimed at getting information out to the public and correcting disinformation about the chaos being unleashed by the Trump administration. With 40 accounts to date, the collective megaphone is getting louder, as most of the accounts have tens of thousands of followers, with Alt-CDC, they, them, being the largest at nearly 95,000 followers. The network has also formed a group and a series of subgroups on Wire, the encrypted messaging app, to share information and develop strategies as played out on Saturday. Most people don't realize this, but #AltGov movement was very active during the first Trump administration. Of course, during the Biden administration, it went away because the leftists inside our federal agencies saw no need to rebel against Joe Biden, but now it's back with a vengeance. #AltGov dates from the first Trump administration, but it's even more needed now, said an employee at FEMA, the disaster response agency, who requested anonymity to avoid being targeted at work. She recently launched an #AltGov FEMA account on Blue Sky. With nearly 13,000 followers, the account says it's dedicated to helping people before, during, and after this democratic disaster. One member of the group that has dared to go public with her identity has explained that the purpose of #AltGov actually is the network is aiming to expose harmful policies, defend public institutions, and equip citizens with tools to push back against authoritarianism. Lynn Stahl, the contractor for the Department of Veteran Affairs and member of the group, told The Guardian. In other words, they want us to use their position instead inside the federal government to oppose the Trump administration any way that they can. If it sounds like this is gross insubordination to you, that is because it is gross insubordination, and we are already seeing the results. Attorney General Pam Bondi instructed the FBI to deliver all documents related to Jeffrey Epstein to her office, and they told her that they had done so. But now it turns out that they had secretly held back thousands of documents, and Pam Bondi is extremely upset. Attorney General Pam Bondi sent a fiery letter to FBI Director Kash Patel on Thursday, accusing federal investigators in New York of withholding thousands of pages of Jeffrey Epstein's documents she has vowed to make public. Bondi said she had requested the full Epstein case file before Patel was confirmed as the head of the FBI, and received about 200 pages of files, far less than the number of pages released last year in a civil lawsuit connected to Ghislaine Maxwell, the former lover and convicted accomplice. I repeatedly questioned whether this was full set of documents responsive to my request, and was repeatedly assured by the FBI that we had received the full set of documents. Bondi wrote, late yesterday I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to this investigation and indictment of Epstein. Unfortunately, many of the documents that Bondi wants may no longer exist. FBI whistleblower Garrett O'Boyle, has revealed that operatives inside the FBI have been working feverishly to destroy sensitive files. There are FBI servers, said ex-agent turned whistleblower Garrett O'Boyle, and people inside the FBI have been working night and day to destroy files on these servers. No idea on what it is, I can only speculate. But you mentioned the Epstein list, he said. I'd imagine it's cases like that. Now that Kash Patel has finally been confirmed, he is moving quickly to try to get control of the agency, but it appears that many FBI agents have no intention of obeying his lawful orders. Last week, right out of the gate, Kash Patel said 500 people were going to Alabama. O'Boyle said, explaining that they would still be headquarters personnel, but in Alabama. The other 1,000 agents, he said, were sent out to the field nationwide. Already, people are saying we are not going to comply with that, O'Boyle told Johnson. We're going to make it seem as if we transferred. We're going to do what they call paper transfers, and we're not going to obey these lawful orders, they said. What a mess. If this sort of insubordination persists, more agencies may have to be almost entirely dismantled, just like USAID was. Sadly, many workers that were fired at USAID and other federal agencies are now conducting wild protests. Dozens of the protesters crammed into the lobby of the office of Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, but they were eventually tossed out by security. They also tried to get into the district office of Republican Senator John Thune of South Dakota, but they were pushed out by staffers. It's been an emotional roller coaster. Like I said, I came to USAID intending on staying there for as long as I could. I really loved the work that we were doing, said one unnamed former USAID worker to WCSH-TV. And now I don't know what to do, she said. And I have cried every day. I think that's normal. I have a 15-year-old at home, and I'm looking at him and thinking, what's this country that we're now living in? On Thursday, USAID employees that have been let go were given approximately 15 minutes to clear out their personal belongings out of their former workspaces. USAID employees clutching backpacks and wheeling suitcases full of their belongings trickled out of the now shuttered agency's headquarters on Thursday morning after the Trump administration gave them 15 minutes to clear out. Outside the building in downtown Washington, D.C., a line of demonstrators broke into applause and cheers as each employee left the building. Bouquets of flowers for employees stood nearby alongside a sign reading, "You and your mission mattered." Samantha Power, USAID's administrator, greeted and hugged supporters down the line before she disappeared through the doors of the agency. Of course, this is just the beginning. The cuts are only going to get deeper in the weeks ahead. For example, the Trump administration has announced that 120 IRS offices will be permanently shut down. The Trump administration is moving forward with plans to shut down more than 120 IRS offices that provide taxpayer assistance as part of a broader effort to reduce the federal government's footprint and cut costs. The decision, outlined in a letter from the U.S. General Services Administration, GSA, obtained by the Washington Post, comes at a critical time, right in the middle of the federal tax filing season, which ends on April 15. And President Trump has instructed those running our federal agencies, quote, to turn in a plan for large-scale hand count reductions, end quote, by March 13th. The Trump administration directed federal agency heads Wednesday to turn in a plan for large-scale head count reductions by March 13, as the president told his first cabinet meeting he wanted to purge government workers who are scamming our country. The memo, sent jointly by the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, and the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, tells agency leaders to work with the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, to make cuts to the bloated, corrupt federal government by methods including firing underperforming employees, closing unneeded regional offices, and not renewing contracts. The memo comes after DOGE overseer Elon Musk threatened twice to fire government employees who did not respond to an email asking for 5 things that they did in the last week. Ouch. So how many federal workers could eventually lose their jobs? Well, Trump just said that 1 million federal workers could potentially be on the bubble. President Donald Trump warned that 1 million or more federal employees are now in the bubble because of their failure to respond to an email demanding they justify their jobs. In a wild monologue during the cabinet meeting Tuesday, the president jumped in after Elon Musk responded to a question from a pool reporter about the fates of those who failed to respond to the email sent Saturday by the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, which asked federal employees to list 5 bullet points of items they accomplished in the last week. Despite having previously warned federal employees that failure to respond would be considered a resignation, Musk softened his position in response to the pool reporter asking whether those million-plus employees who blew off the email demand would be terminated. "We're going to send them another email," Musk said, "but our goal is not to be capricious or unfair. We want to give people every opportunity to send an email. And the email could simply be, 'What I'm working on is too sensitive or classified to describe,' like literally just that would be sufficient. I think this is just common sense. We have never seen anything like this before. It shall be very interesting to see how all of this plays out." On top of everything else that's going on, a potential government shutdown is looming in the middle of next month. Congress is barreling towards a deadline to avert a government shutdown in just over 2 weeks, with Democrats and Republicans at odds over whether there should be guardrails on President Trump's ability to withhold funding approved by Congress. Democrats want to insert language in the funding bill to ensure that the administration implements the spending directed by Congress. A reaction to Mr. Trump and top advisor Elon Musk work to downsize large swaths of the executive branch, but Republicans have made it clear they won't accept those terms. Government funding expires on March 14, and keeping the government open past the deadline will likely require bipartisan support in both the House and Senate. Republicans control 53 seats in the Senate of 100, but a funding measure requires 60 votes for passage. In the House, Republicans are operating with a razor-thin majority and a divided conference in which conservatives regularly vote against government spending bills. In my entire lifetime, we have never seen this much chaos in Washington, and of course the chaos in Washington is just the one element of the perfect storm that's raging all around us. I do not believe that our society will be able to handle what's about to happen. I would encourage you to make your plans accordingly. This is by Michael Snyder on End of the American Dream. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. This is by Michael Snyder, and about the author. Michael Snyder's new book entitled Why is available on paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 8 other books that are available on Amazon, including Chaos, End Times, 70-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and the Most Important News, and he's always freely and happily allowed others to republish those articles on their own websites. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.